good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About Social Work. Oh my goodness. We could be talking about the different topics we experience in social work and all the things that's going on in social media. We'll never have any topics not to talk about, right, Regina?
Right. All
And
something going on.
isn't it between all the things that's going on, if you're watching the news and the attacks on government programs and things that have been said by the current administration about how they're going to cut this and cut that, and it's like, wow, okay. And if you're a social worker like we are, you're seeing it, you may be experiencing it, and it can be a lot, right? It can be overwhelming, and it's like, oh my God. Now, how's that not only going to affect what you do in your job and those that you serve? So
Right.
today we're going, huh?
I just said right.
Yeah. And so today we're going to talk about one of those particular topics. There is a fellow YouTuber, Sanfei Reacts. And if you haven't seen her YouTube channel, I, I encourage you to check it out. And most recently, she had videos talking about government programs. She talks about um, primarily, most recently, about Section 8 and EBT, electronic benefits transfers, what it stands for, or food stamps, you might hear it called, or supplemental nutrition assistance program is what it's known for nationally here in the U.S., but you might hear people say EBT or something like that. So, Sanfei Reacts had a video, and it was titled, and it was based on a comment, and the title of the video says, "Think you can outsmart Section 8 HUD? Think again. They are coming for you." And, in the video, it highlights what the current administration is thinking about. They were interviewed, right? I can't even think of the man's name now.
Hmm.
You know who I'm talking about?
I can't.
Um,
I'm not sure.
um, that's a shame. Show you how much I'm paying attention to that. But
Mhm.
but the the current administration was interviewed, and they were saying how one of the first thing they're thinking about cutting is waste in government programs,
Mm.
or did they say welfare programs?
Yeah. Waste and fraud. I'm sure they mentioned Section 8.
Yep.
Hmm.
Section 8 was one of the key topics in this particular video, and it was like, okay, so, and then Sanfei had a number of people on there talking about Section 8. She even had a director of Section 8 video that was out there. I can't think of her name, but she was out of another state, a black woman, and she was mentioning how if you're getting Section 8 is, in other words, she was saying in a very nice, polite, professional way. She was saying if you think that you're getting over, so to speak, think again, because there are ways that they can tell when when something is not quite right, or you're not being up and up, or you're not telling 100% truth based on the video. Different tactics that they have in order to find out and whether or not that um, you may be frauding. So, but I'm saying that all to say, just based on the title of this video, do you feel like because they're going to um, they highlighted Section 8 or welfare programs, do you think it's more like a scare tactic, or they're really going to hammer down and really? Well, we've seen what they've done with employees. What do you think about the programs that they're thinking about cutting?
I think they are really going to do some cuts because I feel like a lot of people should stop posting on social media about
Mm,
how they're benefiting and living on Section 8 because they make it seem like that Section 8 is more of a luxury and it's not for people that really need it. It's like
Okay.
to me, and I just think that the government, you just never know, the government could be watching.
Right.
Hmm.
You bring up an interesting point. So, do you think sometimes I saw another video by Sanfei Reacts where it appeared that some people may be posting just to get a rise or just to get views or just to get a reaction, right? Because people love
Yeah,
to react to things that they don't believe in. Right. Go ahead.
hmm yeah, and some people can post for views and things because they're trying to increase and monetize their content. But I think sometimes they just post too much information.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So you think so that you think that part of what they're saying is actually true, and they sharing too much?
Yes, just sharing too much. I would keep my business to myself.
I hear you.
Hmm. Especially when it comes to the government and with
Right.
this administration here, they're already trying to eliminate a lot of programs.
Mm.
And
So
the
you feel like
people,
it's inviting. Hmm.
and as you look at the people that's on social media, they look like they're very well, like they're capable of working
Hmm.
and being more productive. So I just would keep my business to myself.
I hear you. So if it is the truth, you might not want to put it out there like that.
Hmm. I
Hmm.
would, if I was on social media, I would be saying something like, I am so grateful for Section 8 because I'm not able to make a whole lot of income. And I am just so grateful that I can have this opportunity to take care of myself and my kids and my family. I would put it out there like that, but not as a way of bragging and as an entitlement thing.
That part. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah,
Yeah, that part when you're bragging about how you don't have, if that's the case, about what you're doing with it and you're getting over, then that can entice anger, amongst folks who work, it's like, well, wait a minute.
yeah,
Is that fair? You know, type thing. People get real upset about that. And I get it. I get it. My thing is, I ain't looking at nobody else's garden but my own. So if
right.
that suits you, boo boo, more power to you, but that's not what I want. So, yeah. And speaking of which, you're talking about them telling their stories. Have you heard of any sort of fraud stories personally
I
or
hear
in your line of work?
I hear bits and pieces like with the men, you know, they may be staying with their girlfriend that has Section 8, and when the inspections come, they have to get their clothing items out and just make sure they're not in the home when the inspection is being done. But nothing real outrageous.
Right. Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, you can see the title of this podcast is Let's Talk About Social Workers. And I am a social worker, um,
Yes.
20 plus years here in Michigan. And my counterpart is also a social worker in Alabama.
Yes, Alabama, 20 plus years as a social.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we have some experience under our belt. We have seen some things and heard some things and probably can tell you plenty of stories
Yeah,
for sure. But like you, I've heard stuff remotely because I don't work directly with HUD, but I do have, clients who may be obviously on Section 8 and or those seeking housing. That's just a whole nother story altogether. Those who call our office just wanting help with housing, period,
right.
because either getting put out or they can't find affordable housing or they just don't know where to look, and they just want somebody to help them, obtain housing, if they can, helping them with like security deposit and first month's rent and things of that nature, or they might have lost a job and they need temporary help. So in that capacity, yes, but not necessarily HUD or Section 8 fraud, fraud stories. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah. And so going back to that, okay, so we're talking about HUD and Section 8 and individuals, who need it. Now, she in her video, she talks about people who have been on Section 8 for a number of years or generationally. Do you
Mhm.
have any comment about that or opinion about that?
Yeah, I've had when I worked for HUD, I worked more with people that was on public housing.
Okay, yeah.
So, but I know that a lot of people that was living in public housing,
Mhm.
it was a generational thing. The mom
Mhm.
on public housing, and then when the daughter gets a certain age, then she gets in public housing. It's
Mhm.
usually not set up for people to stay on there long term. It's supposed to help you to transition to something better. But a lot of
Mhm.
people, they stay on it, forever.
Mm. Oh. And so I have a similar experience. I also used to work for public housing prior to what I do now. Um, Even before I became a social worker, and you know, you could see perhaps how it could be generational and the thought process, and that's one of the comments that they made in one of her videos. Somebody else that San Fe always has other people reacting to when she comments on them, and was
Mhm.
saying how you know perhaps the choice or the not knowing anything more basically is what I got out of it,
Mm.
that not knowing anything more, maybe not having anybody around you who aspires to move away from that situation or anything like that, maybe keeps you or conditions you to just stay there. You know what I'm saying?
I can see that happening, because if you don't see anything different, then it will keep you, in the same position. Because exposure expands you. When you see different things and different ways of living, it will, make some people want to do better.
I like that. Exposure expands you. That is so true. That
Yeah.
is so true. When you can see what's more possible than your current situation, then it sparks something in you to say, "Well, wait a minute. How can I be about that? How
Right.
can I get over there? How can I tap into that?" So I'm wholehearted. I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. You're right. And honestly, if you think about it in your surroundings, and don't get me wrong, it just could be, the public housing that I know of back in the day. It wasn't, you know, it was a place to live, don't get me wrong. Place
Mm.
to live, and people had a roof over their head and what have you. And over the years, they torn down a lot of the public houses and had to rebuild them. But again, you were surrounded by the same people with the same thought process. And if everything was okay for them, it's like okay for you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but good point for sure. Um, and so we were talking about this in the beginning about people frauding the system or cheating the system or just trying to survive. And I was mentioning that I just don't believe that there is more people frauding than there is who actually need the assistance. What about you?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think a lot of people really need the assistance, because everything is so high. Inflation is so high. It's a lot of people that really need it. I just think a lot of people focus on the fraud.
Mhm.
They catastrophize the wrong most of the times.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like when somebody is doing wrong, it just draws so much attention. But there's a lot of need out there. Like we talked about with the elderly, with the
Yes.
disabled people, people
Mhm.
that's on a fixed income,
Mhm.
people that's working these full-time jobs and just making minimum wage, and then they have to work a second gig job just to make ends meet. It's just a lot of need out there.
Yeah. I'm
So
with you.
I think the need outweighs the fraud.
For sure. For sure. And they have their own departments, that investigates the frauds and things of that nature. And if, not having worked in HUD, but, working with programs that administer food assistance, if their fraud department is anything like, our department, it's nothing to play with.
Mm-hmm.
And when you if you get caught up in that, trust and believe that you would hope that be your first and your last time. 'Cause my understanding, it is not pretty.
Right. You will go to jail. I know
Hello.
somebody that went to jail for lying about their income to receive food stamps.
Yeah. And and then having to pay it back, and then having um a federal criminal record,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that you don't realize how much that limits you. And I'll just touch on this for a hot second, is that just for example, I had a client, a customer who had similar situation and was looking to get housing, right? But when
Mm-hmm.
you fill out an application for housing, on that particular application, they asked you, had you committed a crime or had you been convicted of blah, 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 blah. And
Mm-hmm.
that person had to put yes.
Yes.
And so when they did that, that sort of weeded them out, so to speak, from being able to move further in the application process. I was like, whoa. And you don't realize how much question like that on getting an apartment, getting a job, um, can affect you, later on down the road.
Right.
So,
And
but
that's one of the
yeah,
things I think that should be changed,
okay,
because how long do you hold something over somebody's head when they've,
yeah,
maybe it should be like have a time limit. Like if the crime was like 10 years ago or
mm-hmm,
15 years ago, give a
mm-hmm,
person a break, because
yeah,
everybody can change. People do dumb things when they're young, they don't make good decisions. So,
yeah,
but it's gonna stop you from getting assistance.
yeah. I'm with you on that because yeah, and people do things under circumstances that they might not have otherwise did it if they weren't in a certain position.
Right.
You know,
I just
but
got
like you
caught
said, being
in
younger,
the wrong crowd. I have a cousin like that, just hanging out with the wrong people.
and it can happen. It
Hmm.
can
And
happen.
not
You
a
make
bad
unwise
person.
choices,
Hmm.
right?
Just not making good decisions. Not a bad person at all. Just got caught up.
Yeah, yeah. I'm with you. And speaking of which, so what you're talking about is like time limit. I had the opportunity to serve at an expungement fair.
Hmm.
Um, because I'm also a notary, and um, just to see the people whose lives, like whose lives were changed because they were given second chances, you know, second chances to have their record expunged. I
Hmm.
don't know what the criteria was at the time, but just to be able to help and to give back and to give people a second opportunity, like you said, if it's been a long time, of course, depending on the offense, then give people an opportunity to do something different and be
Right.
productive um, citizens.
Right.
So I agree with you about that. And um so getting caught up with the wrong crowd, like you were just mentioning. So that if that being the case, I want to go back again to this video. They were talking about one of the reasons people may get caught up is because other people around you will tell on you.
Yeah, they will. They will tell when it comes to going to jail because you think somebody is your friend and they have your best interests. Well, but when it comes to their freedom, they're going to tell on you. There's no friends then.
Right. And so and one of the points that was made was that it could be your own family. Like you piss them off.
Right.
If you make them mad, you make your neighbor mad, you make your family member mad. And one of the first things they'll do, they mentioned, was that they'll call and say, da 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 da. And that could be for any program. I definitely see it in my department. People write, just recently, somebody wrote a letter saying so and so is doing this and so, look into this and da da da. I'm like, wow.
Hmm.
And of course, we got to take those seriously
Right.
until we find otherwise that it might not be true. But you're right. So,
They do it. When I worked at um Department of Human Resources with Child Protective
mhm.
Services, people would
Oh,
call in and make false reports on people stating that they're abusing their children and just all kind of things.
I know, right? Which is totally wrong. We never um, make false reports on somebody, but somebody may do that because they're angry at you or trying to get you in trouble or whatever the case may be. You just don't know.
Right.
You just don't know. And unfortunately, when you have something like that, that can be very unnerving, for lack of a better word, right now.
Exactly. And a waste
So,
of time and resources because then a social worker has to take their time to investigate what you said to see if it's true or not.
exactly.
And you could be
So,
helping somebody else, but no, I have to see what's going on with this.
right. So okay, Regina, I'm finna go there, sweetheart. So we are mandatory reporters, okay,
Right.
right? But we're not mandatory reporters for people who we know might suspect is fraud in the system. We're not mandatory reporters for that. You know what I'm saying?
Just saying, like I think they're doing it, but I'm not for sure.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be of the mindset like, that ain't none of my business? Or be in the way of, I'm gonna tell.
I if I have to see the person doing it
Okay,
because you just don't know if somebody's telling the truth or not.
I feel you. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. See, but and because again, because you're mandatory, I'm a mandatory reporter. I would it have to be some sort of harm or intention that involves children.
Yes. Now, if you tell
So
me directly somebody's being abused, then of course I have to find out. Like when I was working at DHR, I would have to investigate that.
right, right,
Hmm.
exactly. But outside of that, I don't make it my business. And you probably could say the same. I don't make it my business to find out your business to go tell your business, okay?
Mm-mm. When I leave work, I leave it there. I remember I used to take my name tag off when I left from working with Child Protective Services because sometimes I would leave my name tag on and people see my badge while I'm in line at the grocery store and they ask me all
Right.
types of questions. And
Mm-hmm.
no, I have to cut that off. I'm not at work.
Exactly. I'm with you. I'm like, mm-mm. I don't have my ID on. I rarely talk about what I do exactly. So I don't want the questions. you
Right.
know, outside of, the department. And then sometimes people might ask you questions just to perhaps see how they could do something different or circumvent the system. I ain't about that either.
They do. They really do.
So it's like, no, I'm gonna tell you this funny story. So I had a coworker. She, we did basically the same thing in the office. And when she was out and about and she had on an ID and she forgot to take it off, and people would go to approach her to ask a question, she would be like, "Oh, I'm the janitor. I don't know."
That's a good one. I have to use that one.
She did. We were like, "You say what?" She said, "Girl, I tell them I'm the janitor." But if you think about it, it don't take nothing away from her. Do it.
No, it doesn't. It protects her mental health.
There you go.
Mhm.
Maybe she get a chance to listen to this. I know she'd be laughing. She's like, "Yep, I sure did."
I like that. That's a
Uh,
genius.
uh-huh. Hey, what do they know? They don't work no caseloads.
Right.
Oh goodness. So, but yeah, it is something, and just being in this profession, period, and all the things that you see and come across, and we have mutual customers, right? Like
Yes.
we have mutual customers. Like our customers are typically mutual. So my Section 8 customers, my EBT customers, Child Protective Service customers tend to come from the same pool.
Hmm.
If I'm saying it correctly or saying it in a way you understand, you right?
Yeah, I do.
So um so yeah, so the same thing that applies for us, we started talking about Section 8 and HUD, that could be applied to any program, right?
Right.
So um and again, I don't care what it is, unless you say unless I see it, and I don't want to know about it, to be honest with you.
Exactly.
Like if you talking about defrauding this or defraud or conversations uh that I might even think is going in that direction, girl, I exit stage left. Mm-mm.
Right. And that's why I think like people really incriminate themselves just by talking too much. You never know who you may be talking to or who's watching you.
Exactly.
And you're making all of these comments and bringing people into your homes, knowing you work. And these people, like, I know him, they work. Oh, they make a lot of money doing Uber, or they make a lot of money cleaning houses. They get paid
Hmm.
at the table. You just don't know who watching.
Yeah, that's true. That is so true for sure. And it's best to not broadcast that sort of stuff, particularly if you know that it's something that you know maybe you just didn't you neglected to share. There you go. You just forgot. As I said, you just forgot and neglected to share.
Because
And
even see some big time YouTubers that's
uh-huh.
living in government assistance with public.
Mm, now
And
that's pretty
I'm thinking
bold.
to myself, are they reporting that YouTube money that they receive every month?
Mm, right. Right.
So,
Yeah. That's a whole nother story.
right.
That is
And you're
that
on
is a whole.
YouTube. I see them on YouTube, and then YouTube paid me this much of money a month. And I'm like, that's just reckless to talk about your income on YouTube. And you're
If you're
living
not.
in public housing,
Yeah.
low income.
Mm,
So that's just something I wouldn't do. Just a word
just
to the wise who's ever watching out there. Just make sure if you're living in public housing or low income housing, you may not want to talk about your income.
or getting assistance, period. How about that?
Right.
I don't care what sort of assistance you're getting. If it's government assistance, I mean, is it your goal? Okay, let me back up. Is it your goal to earn enough so you can call these particular agency, hey, I don't need you anymore, and cut my case,
Right.
and then you decide you're gonna take this money and do something better or do something different with your life? Okay. But yeah, to stay on it and perhaps maybe report it and may not report it, you run the risk of, it coming
Bye.
back to bite you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back because you don't know who sees who on social media.
Right.
Somebody could run across it, be like, wait a minute, you know, is that so and so? And this is a small world for
It
sure.
is very small. That's why I don't tell anybody where I work at on YouTube. I can tell you what I do, but I can't tell you where I work and
Right,
who
right.
I work for. Mm-mm.
I feel you. I understand, and you run the risk that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and just in the field that we're in, it's how can I say it? It's a sensitive topic. Let's
Right.
be real. It's a sensitive topic, and depending on what you're talking about, it could ruffle some feathers, based on your opinion about this, that, and the other. So, and quiet as is kept, I was talking to, well, there was another YouTuber. I was on their live, and she was mentioning how she has to go out to the public, and she sees this and she sees that, and it was just new to her. And I was sharing
Mm-hmm.
with her that I said, baby, she said, but how do you feel? I said, honey, I'm seasoned, I'm conditioned.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
when you've been in the field for so long, that don't too much surprise you. You be like, oh, okay. And next, and what do you go from maybe when you first starting out, like, what? Oh my goodness, really? To okay. So what we doing about it? How can I help? If I can't help, who can I refer you to? Um,
That's
and
true.
and you keep it moving.
I always tell people this: there's nothing you can tell me that's going to sound weird.
Okay.
I don't get surprised about anything anymore. I've seen it all, heard it all. There's nothing you can say that's embarrassing or just weird, or you're gonna feel that you think that I'm gonna feel uncomfortable, or that I'm gonna judge you or look at you in any kind of way. So
Right. Exactly. I'm so glad you said that because that was the comment that I made as well. It's like, it is what it is. There is no judgment because people are in situations based on a number of things, be it mental, the way they were brought up, the financial situation, the emotional situation. You just don't know, right?
right.
So, just based on that, it is what it is. And like you said, there's nothing someone can tell me where I feel like, oh, I'm gonna be so shocked or I'm gonna be so like, oh my God, how can you? No, none of
Mm,
that.
exactly.
No, you get used to it. It's not numbing, but you still have compassion. And if
Hmm.
anything, you being a social worker, you draw on what you know about everybody is a person and they bring with them all the things about their life to the table, and you just don't judge. You meet them where they're at and you try to assist them the best that you can where they are, be it
Right.
mental, financial, environmental, whatever the case might be. So it's like, okay, yeah.
Exactly.
Oth- Otherwise you wouldn't be in the field as long as you have been,
Right.
because otherwise it would quite frankly, Regina, I'd be burnt out.
I know.
I'd be burnt out being so surprised or being judgmental or being so like, oh my God, talking about it for days on end. Mm-mm. Nope.
You sure would. You would not be in the profession of social work.
Uh-uh. And like you, when I leave work, I click it off. I'm like, I click it off because you have to. You can't take take it with you.
Now, when I was younger, I would used to take things home with me when I was new to the
Mm,
profession, like you said. But now
mm,
I know how to turn it off. 'Cause it
right.
would not be good for anybody if I am weighed down.
Exactly. And one of the things that you interesting enough, people might be surprised. When you're a social worker, you have things going on in your life too. But you
Mm,
can't social you can't social work your own self.
speak on that. That is so true.
You still experience things. You can't social work, I can't social work my family or any other sort of stuff. So you have to process stuff, similar to what other people are doing.
Exactly.
So
The client broke and you going through financial problems. It be all kind of stuff that's happening, but you still gotta help them.
yep. You show up the professional that you are. And if it's not one of them days where you can show up, you take a mental health day. You take a sick day, you know. But it don't help you to be all in shambles in front of your client or your customer,
Mm-mm.
and you trying to help them. It's like, no, that ain't gonna work.
No, you want to help the client, not bring them down, make them feel worse.
I know. That's what we offer hope
Mm-hmm.
and go from there. So speaking of hope, how do you think, like, okay, how do you think that we show up when we trying to help folks in similar situations? Okay, like if you know a person, whoever you serve, let me put it that way. Whoever that you serve, how should, how do you show up? No matter what that they may be expressing to you, whatever they may be doing in their lives or what have you. That makes sense.
Yeah,
I
I
may
just
not.
don't. Whoever I'm helping, I'm always non-judging, and I'm always trying to give them my best. I'm always actively listening to what they're saying,
Hmm.
and just always showing compassion to them,
Hmm.
and just trying to make sure I always give them the best information and resources that they need without judgment.
Right.
I never like putting people, I guess you can call it just categor categorizing everybody the same, just trying to make sure that everybody is unique. Even if I heard their story over and over and over again, and it's just a different face, it's all brand new to me when I'm working with that person.
Right. I ditto that absolutely, and that even includes people because okay, we're talking about government programs and stuff like that, and that includes people who have um, criminal backgrounds or who had you know criminal history, and people may share that with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you still have to service them just the same. It's just I always say that's what they did. That's not who they are.
Exactly.
And so, yes, there are many different circumstances for which person finds themselves in and how they've come through that. And the last thing that you want somebody well is to leave you worse off than when they came to you.
Right.
That that would make me feel less of a professional social worker if somebody walked away from me and they're like, well, why did I even go see her? she, or why did they even have me to talk to her? Because she was just not kind, not helpful, didn't offer, anything. And quiet as is kept, we know as social workers, we can't solve all people's problems. That's not it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't solve everybody's problems. We don't claim to have super capes and can do all things for our people. It's quite, honestly, some people come to you, you may not be able to help them. You might be able to refer them to someplace else or do the
Mm-hmm.
best you can, but everybody we're not able to help.
Yeah. But if we could, we would. But sometimes it's just not depending on where you live at, it's the resources are not just available. It's just the lack of resources.
Mhm. Yeah, and that could be a whole nother podcast. So when you have lack of resources and the other types of demographics in the area where you live, the possibility that certain things may happen is just it is what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, but definitely the lack of resources and going back to the housing. Housing is expensive.
Oh, yes. It really is. Just
So,
especially depending on what location you're living in.
mhm, exactly. I mean, I don't know what you're listening to this podcast. How much you paying for one bedroom apartment, two bedroom apartment, three? And if you have a family, you definitely need more space or what have you. But to live in an area, um, of one of your choosing or whatever case might be, and to be able to afford it, how much is rent? I'm
Yeah.
I'm just guesstimating here anywhere upwards of $1,000 plus.
Yes. Because this is the new millennium. Back maybe 10 years ago, you could pay 500. I
Hmm.
think I remember rent. Let me see. I believe when I first started, when me and my husband first got married, I believe our rent was, I think it was 383 for an apartment, a nice apartment. I
Right,
know
right, right.
it was 431 for a
Okay,
nice apartment. It had a pool, it had the community house.
okay.
But that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, yeah,
But now it's gonna be a
exactly.
thousand or more, depending on what
Minimum.
location you live in or what state you're from.
Exactly, exactly. So if you're looking at $1,000 a month rent, how much income would you need to have in order to live comfortably and do the things that you want to do? And comfortable to one person is different for everybody, right?
Right.
So just having the basic necessities, perhaps here, public transportation is okay depending on where you're at, but
Hmm.
most of the time you need a car.
You do.
So, um, so paying $1,000 rent if you have a car. Maybe you don't have a car note. Maybe you know, it's bought outright. But if you do have a car note, then understand the car note astronomical nowadays.
And let's
And
not
so,
even count, the maintenance on a car, the gas.
yes, the gas, the upkeep, and all the things.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I'm just throwing a number out there. So I'm thinking no less than $25 an hour.
Right. And most
And
most
mhm,
companies not paying that.
and I'm venturing to say that $25 an hour, you don't have a family.
Mm-mm. But people, that's why people are working longer in two jobs with a side hustle. They're doing Uber when they get off from work. It just
Hmm.
doesn't stop because they're not making the ends meet.
Right. Gotcha. It gets me to thinking about all the YouTubers I see out here who actually move out of the country. That's a whole nother podcast, Regina.
Right, it is. And if I was younger, I would probably consider moving.
Okay. But not now.
No, not now. I'm too old and I have too many roots here.
Too many routes. I understand.
Hmm.
You could travel back and forth.
Nah, my parents. I wouldn't want to leave my parents since because they're getting older.
Right.
Hmm.
Look, take them with you.
My
They
parents
might.
are so stubborn. They will be like, "No,
Uh-huh.
you're not going anywhere. You can leave."
Right, right. Oh wow. That's an option for some people as well. I'm just touching on that just to say the cost of living in other countries, from what you can see, of course you have to go and experience it for yourself. But what you can see from the exchange rate, things like that, can be a benefit to somebody. So if you took your retirement money or
Hmm.
um, it would go a lot further than living here.
Yes, it would, and it's not gonna get any better here.
Hmm.
Going to continue to increase. Medicaid has not been expanded. We don't have expanded health care, and this is the greatest country in the world. But we just have a lot of things that's not, the system is just not set up for people that work for a living. It used to
Right.
be in maybe 20 or 30 years ago, it was set up that way. But now you have to overextend yourself to just make a decent living.
Isn't that something? And that leads to that overextending. That leads to burnout. That
Mm-hmm.
leads to stressed out, you know.
Mental health is on the rise. It's just puts people in desperate situations.
Exactly.
Kids
Exactly.
raising kids because their parents are not able to be at home. There's no work-life balance.
Well, that's definitely something to think about. Um, in the state of which we find ourselves in today. I am keeping hope alive, Miss Regina.
Yes, we got to keep it alive. I am a believer, so I know
Yes.
God will protect his children.
All right. Say that
But the
again.
systems that are in high places, they are making
Mm,
plans and rules and regulations that benefit them. And so we just have to, pay attention to what's going on.
absolutely. I'm in agreement with you. Paying attention to what's going on and keeping our faith, whatever your faith is, or if you have it, whatever the case might be. But I'm with you.
Yes.
Because if I depend on the folks that I'm looking to, that I see in the news and all the
Well,
things that are going on in the world, girl, I'd be crazy.
I know, but we know who's the ruler of the world, who controls everything. So
Hello?
they
And
think they have
who?
control. He allows them to only go so far.
So we definitely know who we are and whose we are, right?
Right.
So on that note, I thank you so very much, Miss Regina, for this conversation, and look forward to next time when I talking about social work and things that are going on in the profession. And if you're a social worker and you're listening to this, and you have a topic that you like us to discuss and talk about, let us know in the comments, or let us know what you think about what we talked about today and what's your opinion about um, Section 8 and HUD, and them wanting to um, attack it, so to speak, for fraud and all the things. So we would love to hear from you. Thank you so very much for listening. Have anything closing to say, Mr. Gina?
No, just make sure you all be mindful of what you put out on social media. Just know that HUD is watching and they have very sophisticated systems that can find out what you're making.
Hello.
Hmm.
And that's for any program.
Right.
It's definitely they might not tell you that they looking at you, but when they get to the point where they approach you, then it already got enough evidence against you. We're gonna leave it like that. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
All right, then. Well, thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time. And thank you, Miss Regina. Bye bye, y'all.
Good night.
Good night.